Hey everyone, this is Matthew, and welcome to another one of my video diaries for my writing and reading. Today is a lovely day in April. It's April 12th, and I'm pretty sure I have the date right. I got the date wrong in my last video, but this one is hopefully correct. So, first off, my writing. My writing this week went okay. I wrote 1,288 words, which as I said, is okay. So I'm up to 18,447 words. And so I can't really complain too much about this, but I did have a bit of a hump this week. Uh, I was struggling towards the beginning of the week to produce any new content, and it was only on a couple of days when I actually did produce some content. And my hump started because I was speaking to someone about this current project, this current novel, and as I was describing what I assumed was the wonderfully exciting, elevator pitch that I have for it, I wasn't getting quite the response I expected. And this person is a lovely person and supports me in every way. And it was more just my reaction to their reaction that I started to wonder if my book is as marketable as as I assume it is. And I mean, part of this is also because, uh, I was thinking this week of a Margaret Atwood quote, and it was about when she when she was first thinking of The Handmaid's Tale, and she told her partner, I can't remember his name, she told her partner about her basic idea, and he said to her, I don't know, have you bitten off more than you can chew? Or something like that. And she said it like totally destroyed her for like days. And and I think that's partially what was happening to me is that I was telling someone about this, overarching structure of my book, and I was realizing that this person, even though they were being lovely, were perhaps not as enthusiastic as I would hope they were going to be, as enthusiastic as I am. So I started to wonder about the marketability of my book. And, you know, it's always good to consider the marketability of your work, not in the sense of like everything should be sold, and I'm not really supportive of that. But I do think it's important to think of your audience and who's going to read your work and what ways they're going to find into your work, in particular, like what kind of hooks they're going to find in your work. And so I think it's a really useful practice to start thinking about these things, and particularly early on. But the problem, of course, when you're thinking about things like marketability or who's going to eventually buy this, is that it can become paralyzing. And it did become paralyzing for me. And so for a while, I was stuck in a marketability spiral, just going down and down, thinking that no one will ever want to buy anything from me, well, any of my ideas. You know, there's a great line from the Robert Palmer song, Johnny and Mary, and I've been listening to a cover of it recently, and it says something like, Johnny wanted the world to buy truth from him. And I mean, that's kind of what you're hoping for when you're writing, is that people will want to buy your truth. And if you start worrying about, oh, wait, maybe they won't actually want to buy this truth from me. They don't actually need it or think it's that important. So I was caught into that marketability spiral. And, I can't really say how I fixed it. It was not something I can remember right at this moment. I was trying to earlier on. But what helped me was that I did get some positive feedback from some of my peers. And this is partially related to the whole issue as well, was that at the same time I was discussing the elevator pitch for this work, I received some negative news about my work that I'm trying to sell right now or trying to get published. And it was from someone who I thought was going to be interested in the book, and when they were not interested in it, it affected me a bit. as rejection may sometimes do. So this is where I was at. And so when I received some positive feedback from my friends and colleagues about my writing ability, it did help me get through this moment a little bit. And reminds me that sometimes we do just need someone to say, yes, you're on the right track. Keep going. It's not all in your crazy little brain. So, yes. And apart from that, I did do some. I did do some writing this week, and I'm getting close to the end of part 2. So as I previously mentioned, I have 9, roughly 10 main chapters that I'm going to be working on. Although as I work through this, I may expand the chapters beyond what I thought I was originally going to do. But basically 9 or 10 chapters. And I'm kind of getting to the end of my second one. So I'll probably be starting on my third one soon. And this one will be a little bit more nerve-wracking because, I have a different character for each one of these main chapters. And the next character, I'm not actually quite sure who it's going to be. And I don't really have a lot of notes about this character, and it's going to be a little bit difficult for that reason. So we'll see. Be interesting. And I did write some notes, so that will help me. But I will probably, before I start on part 3, will need to write a little bit more in the note style, whatever. Yes. Yes. So the next up is my reading. And if you've seen my other videos, you know that I'm currently reading My Struggle by Karl Knausgaard. And if you've seen my other videos, you probably also know that I'm finding it kind of boring. And I'm still finding it boring. It remains my struggle on the TTC as I read maybe like 6 pages and then go, I cannot do this anymore. So at the same time, I'm committed to finishing the book, and even though I'm finding it a little difficult, kind of difficult, I am also, I respect what he's doing and still find it interesting, and it is prompting a lot of deep thought or serious consideration on my part about my project because we share some things in common. And in particular, I was thinking about nonfiction and the style of nonfiction because I really think that he's trying to engage with the style of nonfiction because this is supposed to be a fictional autobiography. I mean, this is the whole idea of that is interesting, and really what is going on in here, well, let me just get to it in a second. So he's writing this fictional autobiography, and as I said, the whole idea of nonfiction has become really interesting to me, and it has been partially prompted by this book called Reality Hunger by David Shields. And in it, he has this quote. I don't know if it's David Shields or if it's someone else who came up with it, but essentially it's his idea that throughout the history of the novel, people have been trying to put more reality into it. And, I mean, you could debate whether this is true or not, but I think in general it's probably true. I think a lot of what we call the innovations in the writing of the novel have been times when someone has decided to include something into the novel which has previously been not included. And so, at this point, a lot of people would say, oh, we have everything we could possibly have in the novel. And what some people are arguing is, oh, no, we need more. We would need more reality. So some people are doing things like this fictional autobiography, where you're writing essentially an autobiography, but it is still fictionalized. And what's interesting about this is that, I don't know anything about his life or his family, and so I have no idea to what extent this book has been fictionalized. I mean, he may have fictionalized everything, or he may not have fictionalized anything at all. It may be fairly accurate. So it started to get me to think about what exactly makes me feel like it's nonfiction, that it's an autobiography. And I mean, apart from the fact that I've been told it is, and I feel like it is simply because of the way it's been written. And in that way, I feel like nonfiction does have a style, that you can recognize nonfiction not just by the words that are said around the book, like the ways in which the book is framed, but inside the book has particular ways in which it is written that make it seem more non-fictional than other books. And, I'm still in the process of developing my ideas about this, so I can't go into too much detail. But one thing that I thought is interesting is this whole idea of being boring. Life is boring to some extent. I mean, some people's lives are more exciting than others, but uh, in I think in general, we would say, if we are writers, you would be encouraged to cut out things from your story that are boring and just leave the exciting parts. Whereas in reality, we have to deal with the boring parts. We have to deal with the waiting in line and the stubbing your toe and what else, all the other boring, mundane facts of life. And so, I mean, some novelists have tried to do this by adding the boring, mundane things, but then they have kind of coded them in symbolism and beauty. And I previously mentioned that he really does seem to be avoiding beauty in this book, and he's also really avoiding symbolism as well. There is a feeling of any detail, all the details are included, and none of them matter in many ways, but they're not mattering matters. So, I mean, that's interesting in itself. How can we judge this as being a good work of art if it's without symbolism? I mean, some would argue that it does have symbolism, but without this sort of feeling of symbolism in it. So there's these kind of aspects that really do create a feeling of nonfiction, and also just in nonfiction, the story isn't complete. We're not given a full story, and we're not given an artfully split story, a story that's artfully missing a piece that still feels like it's there. It's a story that has gaps and holes and feels ragged and comes from the few perspectives that you can gather, and you put it all together and you try to create meaning out of it, and you often don't create meaning out of it, or there's often a feeling that there's something lacking. A reporter writing about a crime will often have parts that are just missing, and we expect that to be the case. We expect to come away from reading about a crime with a lot of unanswered questions and feeling like the whole thing wasn't necessarily, a perfectly sealed up, artfully created fictional piece. So, and I think he's doing that as well. I'd have to read more to really get the feeling for it, but really creating the sense that this is just the things that he can capture, and there are a lot of things outside of his grasp that he will never capture, and that could be important to the story, but he just won't have them. So let me see, is there anything else? Yeah, I mean, those are kind of the main things that I really wanted to approach, but I'm going to be reading more nonfiction as I continue writing my book, just because I want to really do figure out some of these ways that nonfiction is present in a style, so that I can steal it and make my fictional book look more like nonfiction. So I would assume that's a good hook, but I don't know. Some people may not like it. And yeah, I mean, that's basically it. So I have higher hopes for this week coming up. I left off in a good spot, so feel like I have a lot to say coming up for the next, hopefully, 2,000 words. Otherwise, I will see you in a week, and I hope you have a wonderful week too. Yay! Bye!